It is scientifically proven that Carl cannot walk backwards without tripping on himself. It is proven. We are back, bitch! Hey guys, David here, and The Walking Dead has returned with its mid-season premiere entitled After, meaning after all that shit that happened in the mid-season finale about 2 months ago. The Walking Dead has returned after that very long break, and it may not be the biggest bang that people were expecting it to be. But I actually kind of enjoyed it. Of course, if you have not seen the newest episode of The Walking Dead, please go watch it, come back, and then you can watch this video because spoilers will follow. First off, props to the writers for keeping with the continuity of the zombies in The Walking Dead. Herschel's brain was never completely destroyed, so seeing his reanimated head down on the ground there and then having Michonne take it out, that was some pretty freaky and very, emotional stuff. But then the episode focuses on the aftermath that our characters have to go through from the mid-season finale, hence the title of the episode, After. And this episode decides to go ahead and just focus on 3 characters instead of everybody. It just focuses on 3. Rick, Carl, and Michonne. And for some people that may be kind of disappointing because they wanted to see Daryl, and they wanted to see Maggie and Glenn, and they wanted to see what happened to Judith if she did live. But I actually kind of like it because it means that the writers want to take their time and focus on a handful of characters at a time and not saturate the entire episode with just everybody and what everybody's doing at the current moment, and instead just focus on 3 people, and then in probably the next episode we're going to focus on 3 more people or just the rest of the group entirely. And since Rick and Carl are the only ones that we know are kind of paired off, the majority of the episode focuses on them and their very, very flawed father-son relationship that has taken such a huge beating since the mid-season finale, especially with the disappearance of Judith and the loss of the prison. It's just like Rick says, things are not going to be the same. And I will admit, I found the dynamic between Rick and Carl throughout this episode to be kind of frustrating because Carl's doing that I can do this on my own, I don't need your help type thing almost throughout the entire episode. And I'm just like, please Carl, don't be the next Andrea because you're heading in that direction. Unfortunately, by the end of this episode, he kind of comes around a little bit and he keeps himself from being an Andrea. He doesn't go in that direction and to that extent, but I still have some problems with this character. Now, unlike in previous episodes and in previous seasons, there's some things that he says in which I at first felt kind of agitated with because I'm like, come on, Carl, this is not the time. Stop whining like a little bitch. But then it's that scene where he just goes off on Rick when Rick is unconscious on the couch and he just says, you could have saved Mom or you could have protected Judith and all this. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of understand his rage right now because if I was in his position, I would be angry. And he has the right to be that angry. And angry at those things of Rick not being able to protect his family, to protect his friends, to protect the prison in general. So in that sense, it was kind of easy for me to understand where Carl was coming from. Now, I still think that it was a little bit bratty for him to go off on his own and almost get killed by a bunch of walkers. Although I will admit it led to one of the more suspenseful scenes in the season so far, where he takes on that walker inside the house, which started off with what, in my opinion, has got to be one of the biggest jump scares in the series so far, and in season 4 in general, because I had the laptop in my lap. Obviously, it's a laptop. It's a laptop, and it almost flew off my lap when that zombie popped through the door. It's one of the biggest jump scares. But I do kind of like how Carl ended up eating his words like he ate that cereal, because as much as he says, oh, I can do this on my own, blah, 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 there's hints at him not being able to do it on his own, especially when he thinks that Rick is dead and he's come back as a walker, which I thought was a rather spooky kind of scene, mainly because of how it was shot. But I'm like, there's no way. This has got to be a dream of some kind. But it ended up being him just having some breathing problems. But I really appreciated how at the end Carl does recognize that maybe I'll just stick around for a little while. Maybe maybe you could be kind of useful, Dad. And also what I found kind of funny is that, is it just me, or did Carl's voice change from the mid-season finale to the mid-season premiere? I understand that it's been 2 months, but I'm pretty sure that they shot it around the same kind of time, because I distinctly remember Carl's voice being kind of, I can do this, Dad, in the mid-season finale, and now in the mid-season premiere he's like, hey, Dad. Speaking of dream sequences, we also got Michonne, and the best part of this episode was Michonne. Not only because she is badass once again, I mean, you can't go wrong with Michonne being a badass, but on top of that, if you've been wanting to get a good sense of what kind of character Michonne is, I mean, up until this point we've been having somewhat hints here and there of what her past life was like. When she was handed Judith in that one episode, she started crying, and we're all trying to figure out, like, did she have a kid? Maybe that's why she was being very emotional during that scene. And this episode answers all the, well, at least most of those questions, because in a dream sequence we get a visual peek through the window into her past life. We actually see her as a normal person. She's got regular looking hair, regular looking clothes. Her boyfriend and what I perceive to be her brother are on the table having a very classic conversation. They got their clothes. I mean, upon seeing it, you can easily tell that this is a dream sequence. You're like, of course, either a dream sequence or simply just a simple flashback. But the way that it's shot, it's just so nuanced that you're like, man, I really wish we could just stick around, but I know that eventually she's either going to have to wake up or snap out of it, and we're back into the dreary world of The Walking Dead, of the zombie apocalypse. But it did an excellent job at really making us feel for her character. And then to top it off, you got that scene later on where she takes out all of those walkers within that area, and she's just crying, and then later on to have her cry even more after finally reuniting with Carl and Rick, which in my opinion has got to be one of the most heartfelt scenes in the series so far. I mean, the series does a good job at making you feel very depressing, because there's so many moments where all hope is lost. But when Michonne sees Rick and Carl through that window, to me it was a genuine awe moment. I literally went, oh, because it moved me. It was very emotional seeing Michonne tear up like that, but for the first time in quite some time, she's probably having tears of joy. Unlike in the rest of the episode where she's crying because she's sad, because she misses her boyfriend, her family, and her past life, especially her child. I mean, seeing her with that child, you're kind of like, that's why she was crying when she helped Judith. And that's something that we can use to really get attached to Michonne. And with that, in my opinion, Michonne is becoming another Daryl. And by that, I not only mean because she's a badass, but also because she's that character that if we lose, we're going to ride. At least I'm going to ride, because she is achieving Daryl status. Other than that, there's almost not that much to this episode. That's literally about it for what happens in this episode, which is kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. It's kind of a bad thing because if you're looking for big, eventful things to happen within a Walking Dead episode, you're probably not going to find it here, especially some good old-fashioned zombie kills and a lot of suspenseful action, even though I did say that that scene where Carl is taking on that walker inside the house and steals his shoe, I did find that scene to be kind of suspenseful, but I still knew that Carl had to live. I mean, I can't see how Carl could get bitten. I mean, if he had gotten bitten, I definitely would have thought to be a bold move for the show to do, but they obviously didn't, and I kind of knew that they weren't going to do that. But if you're going to look for great zombie kills, some good action, some good suspenseful moments, you're probably not going to find it here, but because it's so simple and because it has a very clear focus on these characters and seeing the aftermath that they have to go through after what happened in the prison, I don't have that much bad things to say about it, other than, like I said, I find it kind of frustrating how Carl is still being a little whiny, a little like, oh, I can do this on my own. But other than that, there's almost not that much that I can complain about with this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and give episode 9 of season 4, entitled After, an 8 out of 10. It's a good episode, but not necessarily one of the best. But it definitely has me looking forward to the next one, which I will probably bet on anything that they're going to go ahead and start focusing on Daryl, on Beth, almost forgot her name, Beth, and hopefully the fate of Judith. So that's it for my review. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this mid-season premiere of The Walking Dead. And I'll see you guys next week in my review for episode 10 of season 4. I'll see you guys then.